The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between stars. It was bigger than most moons and filled with creatures from across the galaxy. Today, they had all come for one purpose: to judge humanity. Elena Vasquez stood in the center of the Great Hall. She was the last human diplomat, and her hands were tied behind her back. Two tall alien guards stood beside her. Their skin was gray and cold, and their eyes glowed red in the dim light. These were the Krillians, and they never showed mercy to anyone. Above her, 12 different alien races sat in a circle. Each one looked different from the others. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others floated in the air like living clouds. A few were made of metal and wires, more machine than living thing. But they all had one thing in common. They all feared humans. High Magistrate Zethkari spoke first. She belonged to the Ethereal Collective, a race that looked like tall, thin ghosts made of blue light. Her voice echoed in the hall like wind through empty caves. "We are here today to judge the human race," she said. "They have been charged with crimes against galactic peace. They spread chaos wherever they go. They teach other races to rebel against proper order. They refuse to follow the rules that keep our galaxy safe." Elena tried to speak, but one of the guards pressed a weapon against her neck. She stayed quiet and listened as the aliens talked about her people like they were some kind of disease. The first piece of evidence appeared in the air above them. It was a hologram showing a human colony on a distant world. In the image, humans were teaching a primitive alien race how to build machines and grow food. They were also teaching them about voting and choosing their own leaders. "Look at this," said Commander Vexithul of the Machine Collective. His voice sounded like grinding metal. "Humans teach inferior species to question authority. They give them ideas about freedom and choice. This leads to rebellion and war." More images appeared. They showed human traders sharing technology with alien merchants. Human teachers showing alien children how to read and write. Human doctors healing sick aliens without asking for payment. To Elena, these looked like good things. But the Council saw them as crimes. "Humans are like a virus," said Queen Sarah of the Serpent Empire. Her forked tongue flicked out as she spoke. "They infect other races with dangerous ideas. They make them think they can be equal to their betters. This threatens the natural order of things." Elder Morn of the Crystal Beings projected his thoughts directly into everyone's minds. His words felt cold and sharp. "In the past 1,000 years, every major rebellion in our galaxy started after contact with humans. They bring chaos and disorder wherever they go." Elena watched as more evidence was shown. There were images of alien slaves being freed by human activists. Pictures of human engineers helping poor planets build better cities. Videos of human scientists sharing their discoveries with anyone who wanted to learn. "Where is the crime in helping others?" Elena finally asked. The guards allowed her to speak now. Magistrate Zethkari's blue form flickered with anger. "The crime is in disrupting the balance we have worked so hard to create. For 10,000 years, our galaxy has known peace. The strong rule the weak. The advanced guide the primitive. Everyone knows their place. Then humans arrived and ruined everything." "You call it peace," Elena said. "We call it slavery with better words." The hall erupted in angry noises. Some aliens hissed. Others made grinding sounds. A few projected waves of hostile thoughts that made Elena's head hurt. But she kept talking. "You're afraid of us because we show other races what freedom looks like. We prove that the weak can become strong, that the primitive can become advanced. You want to keep everyone under your control, and we won't let you." High Magistrate Zethkari raised one glowing hand for silence. "The human speaks of freedom, but what she really speaks of is chaos. Look at their own history. Wars, conflicts, revolutions. They cannot even keep peace among their own kind. How can they bring peace to the galaxy?" "We never promised peace," Elena replied. "We promised growth, change, the chance to become something better. Yes, growth is messy. Yes, change is hard. But the alternative is to stay trapped forever." The council members looked at each other. Some seemed uncertain, but most looked more convinced than ever that humans were dangerous. Elder Vrask of the Hive Mind spoke in a voice like buzzing insects. "The verdict is clear. Humans cannot be allowed to remain in our galaxy. They are too dangerous to control and too stubborn to change." One by one, each council member voted. The Ethereal Collective voted to banish humans. The Machine Collective agreed. The Serpent Empire, the Crystal Beings, the Hive Mind, and all the others voted the same way. Only the youngest member, a representative from a recently discovered species called the Keth, seemed to hesitate. What about their good deeds? the young Keth asked. They have helped many of us. They saved my world from a plague. Their help always comes with a price, Magistrate Zethkari answered. They expect those they help to think like them, to act like them, to rebel like them. This is how they spread their chaos. The final vote was taken. 12 races voted to banish humanity from the galaxy. Only the Keth voted against it, and their vote did not count because they were too new to the council. The decision is made, Magistrate Zethkari announced. All humans must leave our galaxy within one solar cycle. They will be moved to the empty space beyond the galactic barrier. No trade with humans will be allowed. No contact with humans will be permitted. Any alien caught helping humans will face the same punishment. Elena felt her heart break as she listened. Millions of humans lived on hundreds of worlds throughout the galaxy. They had families, friends, jobs, and lives. Now they would all have to leave everything behind. You're making a mistake, she said quietly. One day you'll realize what you've lost. And when that day comes, I hope you remember that we tried to warn you. The only thing we will remember, Magistrate Zethkari replied, is the peace that returns once you are gone. The guards began to escort Elena away. As she walked toward the exit, she turned back one last time. You fear us because we remind you what freedom looks like, she called out. One day you'll remember why you need us. Her words echoed through the great hall as the doors closed behind her. The council members sat in silence for a moment. Some felt relief that the human problem was finally solved. Others felt a strange emptiness as if something important had just been lost. But Magistrate Zethkari felt only satisfaction. The galaxy would be orderly again, peaceful again, safe again. She had no way of knowing that she had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. The consequences of this day would not be felt for 50 years. But when they came, they would shake the very foundations of everything the council believed. For now, though, the decision was made. Humanity would be banished to the dark space between galaxies. The council congratulated themselves on preventing chaos and preserving order. They had no idea that they had just signed their own death warrant. 50 years had passed since the Great Exile. In the cold darkness between galaxies, something amazing had happened. Humanity had not just survived. They had become something incredible. Captain Marcus Chen stood on the bridge of his ship, the Indomitable. But this was no ordinary ship. The walls seemed to breathe like living skin. The controls grew from the floor like plants reaching toward sunlight. The ship was alive in ways that would have seemed impossible 50 years ago. Status report, Marcus said to his crew, but he did not speak with his voice. The words formed directly in their minds through a connection they all shared. This was one of the gifts humanity had gained in exile. All systems are running perfectly, Captain, replied his second officer, Lisa Park. She was born in the deep space between galaxies. Her eyes could see types of light that did not exist in normal space. Her mind could solve problems that would take the greatest computers years to figure out. Around them, the deep fleet moved through the void like a school of metal fish. Each ship was unique, grown rather than built. They fed on energy that came from empty space itself. They could travel faster than light without using the jump gates that the galaxy depended on. Marcus walked to the viewing window and looked out at the darkness. But it was not truly dark to his enhanced eyes. He could see the streams of dark matter that flowed between universes. He could watch the dance of particles that existed in 11 dimensions. Most amazing of all, he could see the Wanderers. The Wanderers were beings made of pure thought. They had no bodies, no ships, no worlds. They drifted through the spaces between realities like ghosts made of living ideas. For 50 years, they had been humanity's greatest teachers and closest friends. One of them approached the ship now. It looked like a shifting cloud of silver light that somehow conveyed the feeling of great age and wisdom. Greetings, friend Marcus. The Wanderer spoke directly into his mind. Its voice sounded like music played on instruments that had never been built. We bring news from the galaxy you once called home. Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. News from the galaxy was rare and usually bad. The council had made it clear that any contact with humans would mean death. What news? He asked. The rigid ones face a problem they cannot solve, the Wanderer replied. Their perfect order has made them weak. Something new has awakened in the galactic core, something that feeds on order itself. Before Marcus could ask more questions, an alarm sounded throughout the ship. But this was not a danger alarm. This was the signal that meant a message had arrived through the quantum communication network. Dr. Sarah Kim appeared on the main screen. She was calling from Research Station Alpha, one of humanity's greatest achievements. The station existed in 7 dimensions at once and housed experiments that pushed the boundaries of what was possible. "Marcus, we're picking up some very strange readings from the galaxy," Sarah said. Her image flickered slightly because she was speaking from a different layer of reality. "Something is wrong. Very wrong. The Wanderers just told me the same thing," Marcus replied. "What are your instruments showing?" Sarah's face grew serious. "Star systems are disappearing. Not destroyed, disappeared, as if they never existed at all. The disappearances started at the galactic core and they're spreading outward." Marcus felt a chill run through his body. In 50 years of exile, nothing had truly frightened him. But this news was different. "How many systems?" he asked. 17 so far. But Marcus, that's not the worst part. We're not just losing the stars and planets. We're losing the memories of them. Our computers have records of these systems, but the records are fading. It's like reality itself is being eaten. The Wanderer that had been listening to their conversation suddenly changed color. Its silver light became deep red, which in their language meant great fear. "We know this enemy," the Wanderer said, its musical voice now sounding like a funeral song. "Long ago, before your species learned to walk upright, they came to our home dimension. They do not just destroy, they unmake. They consume the very idea of existence." Marcus turned to his crew. "Send a message to all fleet commanders. Emergency meeting in 1 hour. And contact the other research stations. I want to know everything we can learn about these disappearances." As his crew rushed to carry out his orders, Marcus thought about the irony of the situation. The galaxy had banished humanity to protect themselves from chaos. Now something was threatening them that was far worse than anything humans had ever done. During the 50 years of exile, humanity had changed in ways the Council could never have imagined. They had learned to work with beings of pure energy. They had developed technology that was part machine and part living organism. Most importantly, they had learned to think in ways that broke all the old rules. Children born in the Deep Fleet could exist in multiple places at once. They could communicate across vast distances without any technology. They understood mathematics that described the shape of time itself. They were still human, but they were also something new. The meeting that followed included representatives from across human space. There was Admiral Sarah Okafor, who commanded the military forces, Dr. Elena Kim, who had continued her mother's research into consciousness and reality, and Maria Vasquez, daughter of the diplomat who had been present at humanity's trial 50 years ago. Maria had become something unique, a quantum diplomat who could exist in several realities at once. She could speak with beings that lived in dimensions humans had never seen. Through her, humanity had made contact with creatures that existed in the spaces between thoughts. "The situation is worse than we first believed," Dr. Kim reported. "These entities don't just destroy matter and energy. They consume the mathematical structures that hold reality together. When they finish with a star system, it's as if it never existed at all." "How is that possible?" Admiral Okafor asked. "Think of reality like a book," Maria explained. "Most destructive forces tear out pages or burn them. These entities erase the words themselves, leaving blank pages behind. Eventually, they would erase the entire book." The Wanderer representative spoke up. "In our language, they are called the devourers of what is. They come from a place where existence itself failed. They seek to make all reality like their dead home." Marcus studied the data his teams had gathered. The pattern of disappearances was not random. The Devourers were following the galaxy's major trade routes and communication networks. They were targeting the most connected and organized systems first. They're attracted to order, he realized. The more organized and connected a system is, the more they want to consume it. This understanding brought a terrible irony into focus. The Council had spent 50 years creating ever greater order and connection throughout the galaxy. They had built massive networks that linked every system together. They had eliminated chaos and unpredictability wherever they found it. In doing so, they had created the perfect feeding ground for the Devourers. "Can we help them?" asked Lieutenant Torres, one of the younger officers. "I know they banished us, but they're still people. They don't deserve this." The room fell silent as everyone considered the question. Many humans had died during the exile. Families had been separated. Dreams had been shattered. The council had shown no mercy and no regret, but the question remained, what kind of people had humanity become in their 50 years of exile? Marcus looked around at his crew and colleagues. They had evolved beyond anything the council could have imagined. They had gained powers that would seem like magic to their old enemies. They had formed alliances with beings that existed beyond normal space and time. They had also kept their humanity. They still believed in helping others, even those who had wronged them. We'll monitor the situation, Marcus decided. If the galaxy asks for our help, we'll consider it. But we won't force our aid on those who don't want it. As the meeting ended and the representatives returned to their ships and stations, Marcus remained on the bridge. He stared out at the dark space between galaxies and wondered what the future would bring. Somewhere in that distant spiral of stars, an ancient evil was awakening. The same order and control that the Council had used to banish humanity was now making them vulnerable to something far worse. The galaxy that had feared human chaos was about to learn that some problems could only be solved by thinking outside the rules. The attack came without warning. One moment, the great fortress world of Krill Prime was the most powerful military base in the galaxy. The next moment, it simply was not there anymore. High Admiral Vorthak of the Krillian Empire stood in his command center, staring at a screen that showed empty space where his homeworld should have been. The readings made no sense. According to every instrument, Krill Prime had never existed at all. "Sir," his communications officer said in a shaking voice, "we're receiving similar reports from across the sector. The Vega defense grid is gone. The Titan shipyards are gone. Even the records of them are disappearing from our computers." Vorthak tried to remember Krill Prime, but the memories felt strange and distant, like trying to recall a dream after waking up. He knew something important was missing, but he could not quite remember what. The same horror was spreading across the galaxy. The Serpent Empire's greatest city vanished between one heartbeat and the next. The crystal being's sacred mountain, where they had meditated for 1,000,000 years, became nothing more than empty space and fading memories. On Nexus Prime, Magistrate Zeth Kari received reports that became more terrifying with each passing hour. The attackers were unlike anything the galaxy had ever faced. They were not invaders seeking to conquer. They were not predators seeking to feed. They were something far worse. They were entities that consumed existence itself. The first clear sighting came from an ethereal collective scout ship. The pilot's report was brief and filled with panic. "I can see them now. They look like holes in space, but holes that move and think. They're not destroying our ships. They're making it so our ships never existed. I can feel my own memories starting to fade. I think I'm next." The transmission ended there. When the rescue ships arrived, they found empty space. No wreckage. No energy readings. No trace that a ship had ever been there at all. Dr. Zendar of the Machine Collective tried to analyze the threat using logic and mathematics. His massive computer brain processed every scrap of data about the disappearances. The pattern he found made him wish he could feel fear the way organic beings did. "The entities follow a specific algorithm," he reported to the Emergency Council session. "They target systems with the highest levels of organization and interconnection first. They are drawn to order like a fire is drawn to fuel." Elder Morn of the Crystal Beings projected his thoughts to the Council. "Our ancient records speak of such creatures in myth only. They are called the Devourers of What Is. Legend says they come from a place where reality itself died." Magistrate Zeth Kari struggled to maintain her composure as the reports continued. The Devourers were moving faster now, consuming star systems at an increasing rate. Their path was leading them directly toward the galactic core where the most important worlds lay. "What are our military options?" she asked. High Admiral Vorthak's image flickered on the communication screen. Half his fleet had already been consumed. "We have tried everything, Magistrate. Quantum torpedoes pass through them without effect. Energy weapons are absorbed. When we ram them with our ships, the ships simply cease to exist. We cannot fight an enemy that unmakes the very concept of our weapons." The situation grew worse by the hour. The hive mind lost connection with 17 of their worlds in a single day. The Star Shepherds watched helplessly as their carefully tended stellar nurseries were erased from existence. Even the mighty Void Walkers who lived in the spaces between stars fled in terror from the advancing darkness. Commander Vex Thule of the Machine Collective attempted one final strategy. He gathered a fleet of 10,000 automated ships and programmed them to attack using pure mathematical logic. The machines were designed to adapt to any defense and overcome any obstacle. The Devourers consumed them all in minutes. Worse, they seemed to learn from each attack, becoming more efficient at erasing existence with every world they consumed. In her private chambers on Nexus Prime, Magistrate Zethkari accessed the Forbidden Archives. These were records that the Council kept sealed away, knowledge deemed too dangerous for general use. As she searched through centuries of hidden history, she began to understand the true scope of the disaster. The files told a story that the Council had tried to forget. Long ago, the galaxy had faced similar existential threats. Each time, it was the chaotic, unpredictable species that found solutions. They thought in ways that ordered minds could not imagine. They broke rules that others considered sacred, and each time, it was humanity that had provided the key insights. The records showed incident after incident, where human creativity and chaos had saved entire sectors from destruction. When the logic plague threatened to turn all organic minds into computers, it was human irrationality that found the cure. When the perfect symmetry entities tried to freeze all change in the universe, it was human chaos that broke their patterns. The galaxy's immune system had always been its unpredictable elements. And 50 years ago, the Council had removed the most unpredictable element of all. Zethkari read Elena Vasquez's final words at the trial. "You fear us because we remind you what freedom looks like. One day you'll remember why you need us." As she read those words, another urgent message arrived. The Devourers had reached the Middle Rim. At their current rate of advance, they would consume the core worlds within days. Every military force sent against them had simply stopped existing. The truth hit her like a physical blow. Humanity had not been banished to protect the galaxy from chaos. They had been banished by a galaxy that had forgotten why chaos was necessary. Order without chaos was not stability. It was death. And the Devourers were attracted to that sterile order like scavengers to a corpse. In the emergency council session that followed, Zethkari presented her findings to the remaining representatives. Many of their races had lost their homeworlds. Others had lost so many systems that they barely qualified as galactic civilizations anymore. "The solution is not to fight these entities," she told the shocked council. "Our ordered minds cannot conceive of weapons they cannot unmake. We need minds that think in ways they cannot predict or understand." "What are you suggesting?" asked Elder Vrask of the hive mind, though his tone suggested he already knew. "We need chaos," Zethkari said. "We need unpredictability. We need the one force in the galaxy that never follows the rules we expect." The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of another alert. 3 more star systems had just disappeared. "You want to contact the humans," Commander Vexthul stated flatly. "I want to beg them to save us," Zethkari corrected, "because we destroyed the one thing that could have prevented this disaster." The debate that followed was brief and desperate. Some council members argued that contacting humanity would be admitting their mistake. Others pointed out that pride was meaningless when faced with total annihilation. Elder Morn spoke for many when he projected his thoughts. "If we are to die, let it be with some honor. Send the message." Young Kethlan, the representative who had voted against humanity's banishment 50 years ago, was chosen to send the transmission. His people had been among the first to benefit from human aid, and among the most devastated by their loss. The message was simple and desperate. "We were wrong. We need you. The galaxy is dying." As the transmission sped toward the dark space between galaxies, Zethkari wondered if humanity would even receive it, and if they did, would they care enough to respond? The Devourers continued their advance, consuming reality itself with mathematical precision. Soon, even the memory of the galaxy's existence might be erased. But somewhere in the darkness between stars, beings who had learned to think outside the boundaries of normal reality might have received a cry for help. Whether they would choose to answer remained to be seen. Time was running out. The galaxy that had banished chaos to preserve order was about to learn the true cost of their choice. The distress signal reached the deep fleet monitoring stations like a scream across the void. It cut through subspace, hyperspace, and dimensions that had no names. The message was broadcast on every frequency at once, carrying with it the desperation of an entire galaxy. "We were wrong. We need you. The galaxy is dying." Admiral Sarah Okafor stood in the central command chamber of Deep Station 1. Around her, holographic displays showed the signal's path and the data embedded within it. The information was devastating. Star systems were vanishing. Entire civilizations were being erased from existence. Something was consuming reality itself. "How bad is it?" asked Captain Chen, whose image appeared on the main screen from his ship. "Worse than anything we've ever seen," Sarah replied. According to this data, they're facing something called the Devourers. These entities don't just destroy, they make it so things never existed at all. Dr. Elena Kim materialized in the chamber. She existed partially in normal space and partially in the quantum realm, which made her image flicker like a candle flame. "I've been analyzing the signal. The mathematical patterns are horrifying. These Devourers consume the fundamental structures that hold reality together, and they're attracted to order," added Maria Vasquez, appearing as a shimmering outline that seemed to exist in multiple places at once. As humanity's first quantum diplomat, she could perceive things that others missed. The more organized and connected a system is, the faster they consume it. The irony was not lost on anyone present. The Council had banished humanity to preserve their perfect order. Now that same order was making them vulnerable to an enemy they could not understand or fight. News of the distress signal spread quickly throughout human space. On research stations and colony ships in deep space habitats and dimensional laboratories, the debate began immediately. Should humanity help the galaxy that had cast them out? The arguments were fierce and emotional. Many remembered the pain of exile, families torn apart, friends left behind, the deaths of those who could not survive the journey to the dark space between galaxies. "Let them burn," said Captain Rodriguez from the Outer Patrol Fleet. "They showed us no mercy. Why should we show them any?" "Because we're better than they are," replied Dr. Sarah Kim from Research Station Alpha. "Because 50 years of exile have taught us things they could never understand. Because that's what being human means." The debate reached its peak during the Great Assembly, where representatives from every human settlement gathered in virtual space. The meeting took place in a digital realm that existed across multiple dimensions, allowing everyone to participate regardless of their physical location. Elena Vasquez, now elderly but still sharp, spoke for those who remembered the trial. "They feared our chaos and banished us to preserve their order. But we learned something important in exile. Chaos without purpose is destruction. Order without change is death. We learned to be both the storm and the calm that follows." Young Commander Torres, born in deep space and raised among the Wanderers, represented the new generation. "The galaxy they banished us from no longer exists. The rigid council members who judged us are probably dead or worse. Should we punish the innocent for the crimes of their leaders?" The Wanderers themselves participated in the debate through their unique form of communication. Their thoughts appeared as shifting patterns of light and music that conveyed meaning beyond words. "Hatred is entropy," they shared. "Love is complexity. Choose which universe you want to inhabit." Their alien wisdom reminded humanity that they had evolved beyond their former limitations. They were no longer the scattered refugees who had fled the galaxy 50 years ago. They had become something new. Beings who existed partially outside normal space and time, who could think in ways that broke the laws of physics. The real revelation came when Dr. Kim accessed the deep archives of human consciousness. Using quantum archaeology techniques, she had been collecting the final thoughts and memories of humans who had died during the exile. Deep in those preserved minds, she found something unexpected. "There's a message here," she announced to the assembly. "From David Kim, my ancestor, who died exploring the galactic core 200 years ago. His final transmission contains a warning about entities that exist in the spaces between realities." The message was fragmentary, corrupted by time and distance, but its meaning was clear. The Devourers had always been there, waiting in the void between dimensions. They were held back only by the natural chaos and unpredictability of living civilizations. When order became too rigid, when chaos was eliminated, the barriers between realities grew thin. The Council didn't just banish us, Maria Vasquez realized. Their obsession with order has been slowly weakening the galaxy's defenses for 50 years. The Devourers aren't invading. They're being invited in by the very stability the Council thought would save them. This understanding changed everything. Humanity wasn't just being asked to rescue their former oppressors. They were being asked to save reality itself. The debate continued for days. Some argued for conditional aid, help in exchange for guarantees that humanity would never be persecuted again. Others wanted revenge, suggesting they should help only after the galaxy had suffered enough to truly understand their mistake. But a third voice emerged, led by those who had been transformed most by their contact with the Wanderers and other transdimensional beings. They argued for something that went beyond revenge or reward. "We're not the same species that was banished 50 years ago," said Commander Singh, whose consciousness existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. "We've become something new, something that exists partially outside the normal rules of reality. With that evolution comes responsibility." "Responsibility to whom?" asked Captain Rodriguez. "To existence itself," Singh replied. "The Devourers don't just threaten the galaxy. They threaten the fundamental nature of reality. If they succeed, they won't stop with our old home. They'll consume everything, including us." Dr. Kim had been studying the quantum patterns embedded in the distress signal. What she found made her call for immediate action. "The signal contains more than a cry for help," she announced. "It contains traces of the Devourer's energy signature. I can use this to map their advance and predict their next targets." The holographic display that appeared showed a galaxy being consumed from within. The Devourer's path was not random. They were following the most organized trade routes and communication networks, consuming the most connected systems first. "At their current rate of advance, they'll reach the galactic edge in 6 months," Dr. Kim continued. "And when they do, they'll break through into the void between galaxies. They'll find us." This revelation ended the debate. Humanity could not hide from this threat. They could not wait for it to pass. The Devourers were not just the galaxy's problem. They were existence's problem. Admiral Okafor called for a final vote. The choice was simple: respond to the distress signal or wait for the darkness to find them. The vote was closer than expected, but in the end, humanity chose to act. Not out of forgiveness for their exile, not out of hope for gratitude or reward. They chose to act because they had become something that the old galaxy could never understand. Beings who took responsibility for the whole of existence. "Prepare the deep fleet," Admiral Okafor ordered. "We're going home." But even as the decision was made, she knew that the galaxy they were returning to would not be the one they had left. The entities that consumed existence itself had changed everything, and humanity, evolved and transformed by 50 years in the void, was perhaps the only force in the universe capable of thinking outside the rules that the Devourers used to unmake reality. The rescue mission would not be simple. It would require humanity to do what they had always done best: break the rules that everyone else considered unbreakable. As the first ships began their journey toward the distant galaxy, the Wanderers offered a final piece of advice. To defeat that which unmakes, you must learn to remake. To fight entropy, you must become complexity itself. Humanity was about to face the greatest challenge in their existence, and they would meet it by being the one thing the galaxy had tried to eliminate: beautifully, chaotically, impossibly human. The deep fleet emerged from quantum fold space at the galaxy's edge like angels of impossible geometry. Their ships phased between dimensions, existing in normal space and several other realities at the same time. To the few remaining galactic sensors, they appeared as ghosts wrapped in starlight and mathematics. Captain Marcus Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching as his enhanced vision revealed the true scope of the disaster. Where once there had been thousands of star systems, now there were only gaps in reality itself. The Devourers had consumed nearly a quarter of the galaxy, leaving behind voids that hurt to look at. "My God," whispered his navigator, Lieutenant Park. Even with her enhanced abilities, the sight of so much missing existence was overwhelming. How many billions of people just stopped being? "We're not here to count the dead," Marcus replied gently. "We're here to save the living." Across the fleet, similar scenes were playing out on dozens of ships. Humans who had been born in the void between galaxies were seeing their ancestral home for the first time. But this was not the galaxy their parents had described. This was a galaxy dying by degrees, consumed by entities that turned existence into nothingness. Admiral Sarah Okafor's voice reached every ship simultaneously through the quantum communication network. "All vessels maintain dimensional variance patterns. Do not let your ships exist fully in normal space. The Devourers can only consume what follows their reality's rules." This was the key insight that 50 years of exile had taught them. Reality was not fixed. The laws of physics were more like suggestions that could be bent by minds that truly understood their flexible nature. The Devourers consumed existence by following mathematical rules, but they could not consume something that refused to obey those rules. The first contact came sooner than expected. A group of Devourers detected the fleet's arrival and moved to investigate. They appeared as tears in space itself, voids that seemed to pull light and matter and even thoughts into their hungry emptiness. "Contact in 30 seconds, reported the sensor officer. 3 entities approaching fast. "All hands prepare for chaos protocol," Marcus ordered. What happened next would have driven any normal mind to madness. The Indomitable suddenly began to exist in 17 different states at once. Its crew became living contradictions, present and absent, moving and still, organic and digital all at the same time. The ship's AI started singing mathematical songs that described colors that had never existed. The Devourers reached the fleet and tried to consume it. But how do you erase something that exists as a paradox? How do you unmake a ship that is simultaneously there and not there? How do you consume a crew that exists partially as living mathematics? The entities paused, confused. They were ancient beings of perfect logic, but logic had no power over chaos that chose to be logical when it felt like it. "They're having trouble processing us," reported Dr. Kim from her research ship. "Their consumption algorithms are getting stuck in recursive loops trying to figure out what we actually are." While the Devourers struggled with this philosophical problem, the human fleet spread out across the galaxy. They followed the distress signals to find the last remaining Council strongholds and refugee fleets. The first rescue came at Nexus Prime, the great space station where humanity had been judged 50 years ago. The station was still there, but barely. Half of it flickered in and out of existence as the Devourers slowly consumed it layer by layer. Maria Vasquez materialized on the station's bridge, her consciousness flowing through multiple dimensions to reach them. To the terrified alien survivors, she appeared as a shifting figure of light and possibility. "Magistrate Zethkari," she said, recognizing the ethereal collective leader, who was now the highest-ranking survivor of the Council. "We received your message." Zethkari's glowing form was dim and flickering. Half her people were gone, erased so completely that even the memory of them was fading. "You came," she whispered. "After everything we did to you, you actually came." "We're not here to save you," Maria explained gently. "We're here to save the galaxy. What you do with the time we buy you is your choice." The rescue operation that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. Human ships phased through space to reach trapped survivors. Crews that existed partially outside normal time pulled people from stations that were halfway consumed. The laws of physics bent and twisted as humanity applied 50 years of impossible knowledge to the task of preserving what little remained. But the real battle was still to come. The Devourers had gathered in the galactic core, where the greatest concentration of order and connection had created the perfect feeding ground. They had consumed the central black hole itself, replacing it with something far worse, a void that actively unmade everything around it. "The core entities are different," reported Dr. Kim after scanning them from a safe distance. "They're not just consuming reality, they're learning to create anti-reality. If they succeed, they'll be able to spread their influence across the entire universe." Admiral Okafor made the decision that would define the next phase of galactic history. "All ships converge on the core. We're going to teach these entities something new." The final battle took place in the space where the galaxy's heart had once beat. Hundreds of human ships faced off against entities that existed as living mathematics of destruction. But this was not a fight in any traditional sense. Instead of trying to destroy the Devourers, humanity did something completely unexpected. They began to teach them. Captain Chen's ship approached the largest entity, the one that had consumed the central black hole. As it tried to unmake his vessel, the Indomitable began to sing. The song was carried by quantum waves that existed in dimensions the Devourer had never encountered. The song told the story of a small blue planet where beings learned to create beauty from chaos. It spoke of art and music and love and dreams. It described the taste of chocolate and the feeling of rain and the sight of a sunset over an ocean. For the first time in eons, the Devourer paused. It had consumed countless civilizations, but it had never encountered the concept of creation for its own sake. It had never experienced beauty that served no logical purpose. Other human ships joined the song, each adding their own verse. They shared memories of children laughing, of flowers blooming, of lovers dancing under stars. They showed the devourers things that had never existed before. New colors, impossible geometries, emotions that had no names. The entities that had spent eternity consuming began to understand what they had been missing. Destruction was easy, but creation was infinitely more complex and satisfying. They could make new realities instead of devouring existing ones. One by one, the devourers stopped their consumption. They began to experiment with creation, building strange and beautiful structures from the quantum foam of empty space. They became cosmic gardeners, nurturing new forms of existence that had never been seen before. But humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy was not the solution to the devourer crisis. It was the establishment of something called the free zones, regions of space where rigid order was forbidden, where different species could interact and evolve naturally, where the unexpected was not just tolerated but celebrated. The old council structure crumbled, replaced by a loose confederation where no single race held ultimate power. Humans served as mediators and chaos bringers, ensuring that the galaxy never again became so ordered that it attracted existential threats. 50 years later, former Magistrate Zethkari visited the human world of New Geneva. She had chosen to give up her title and her species' rigid hierarchy, becoming simply Zeth to her friends. She watched human children play with young aliens in ways that would have horrified her ancestors. The playground was loud and messy and completely unpredictable. A young Krillian was teaching a crystal being how to finger paint. An ethereal child was learning to play hide-and-seek with human twins. It was chaos. Beautiful, necessary, life-giving chaos. "You were right," she said to Maria Vasquez, who had come to visit the school. "We needed you all along." "Not us specifically," Maria replied. "You needed what we represented. The courage to be different, the willingness to break rules that don't work, the understanding that order without chaos is death." Above them, the galaxy spun in its ancient dance, but now it was alive in ways it had never been before. Trade routes carried not just goods but ideas. Communication networks shared not just information but dreams. The rigid perfection that had nearly destroyed everything was gone, replaced by the beautiful mess of true diversity. In the Deep Fleet archives, Admiral Okafor made a final log entry. "They feared our chaos and banished us to preserve their order. But order without chaos is death, and chaos without purpose is destruction. We learned to be both, the storm that clears the air and the calm that follows. The galaxy will never again forget why it needs its monsters." The stars themselves seemed brighter now, reflecting the infinite possibilities that came from embracing the beautiful, terrifying chaos of existence itself. Humanity had returned not as conquerors but as gardeners of complexity, ensuring that the universe would never again mistake sterile order for true peace. And in the vast darkness between galaxies, new civilizations were being born,